Yet that I'm the boy's father.
It's going to be done exactly the way I've told Mr. Thatcher.
There ain't nothing wrong with Colorado.
Citizen Kane is regularly named the greatest film ever made. But when it was finished in 1941, it nearly never saw a single theater. William Randolph Hearst, the most powerful newspaper publisher in America, tried to have the film destroyed. He coordinated with the heads of 4 other major Hollywood studios to buy and burn the negative. The FBI opened a file on Orson Welles. Theaters were threatened with defamation lawsuits if they screened the film. Welles offered to buy the entire film from his own studio for $1 million to ensure it would be released. A gossip columnist threatened to publish a smear story on the grandfather of one of RKO's largest shareholders. Welles was followed by police. He was set up in a hotel sting that would have ended his career. This is the suppression campaign that almost erased Citizen Kane from cinema history. Citizen Kane was a thinly fictionalized portrait of William Randolph Hearst. The film's screenwriter, Herman Mankiewicz, had been close personal friends with Hearst for years. He had been a regular guest at Hearst's California castle, San Simeon. After being exiled from Hearst's social circle, Mankiewicz turned what he knew into a screenplay.
I don't know how to run a newspaper, Mr. Thatcher. I just try everything I can think of.
Charge, you know perfectly well there's not the slightest proof that this armada's off the Jersey
Hello,
coast.
Mr. Bernstein.
Excuse me.
He even included dialogue based almost verbatim on Hearst's own writings and speeches. Welles tried to keep the project secret during production. Access to the dailies was tightly restricted. A December 1940 feature in Stage magazine compared the film's narrative to The Legend of Faust and made no mention of Hearst. But the secret did not hold. Hedda Hopper, the leading gossip columnist of the day, showed up uninvited to a January 1941 press screening. She watched the film. She immediately understood who it was about, and she immediately contacted Hearst. Once Hearst knew, the response was immediate and coordinated. Louis B. Mayer, the head of MGM and the most powerful executive in Hollywood, led a meeting of studio heads. According to the 1996 PBS documentary, The Battle Over Citizen Kane, the heads of 4 major studios participated: Columbia, MGM, Paramount, and Warner Brothers. The proposal was simple. The 4 studios would pool their financial resources, approach RKO Pictures, which owned the film, and offer to buy the camera negative outright. The negative would then be destroyed. The film would never be released. The offer was substantial. Some accounts place it at approximately $842,000, slightly more than the actual cost of producing the film. RKO president George Schaefer rejected the offer. Welles had a contract with right of final cut. RKO had to release the film. The 4-studio cabal lost the battle, but they did not stop trying. There is a financial irony at the center of the Citizen Kane suppression campaign. At the same time William Randolph Hearst was deploying every weapon at his disposal to destroy a film, he himself was financially desperate.
If you can form such a committee, put me down for a contribution of $1,000.
My time's
On the
too
other
bad.
hand, I am the publisher of the Inquirer. As such, it's my duty, and I'll let you in on a little secret.
Documents reviewed for the same PBS documentary established that Hearst was at the time of Citizen Kane millions of dollars in debt. The cause was straightforward. Hearst had spent decades building his California castle at San Simeon. The estate sat on a piece of property roughly half the size of the state of Rhode Island. He owned 8 homes. Each one was filled with priceless antiques and works of art. His art collecting alone had bankrupted comparable fortunes. The man who tried to suppress Citizen Kane to protect his reputation was, at the moment of his greatest power play, on the brink of personal financial collapse. Shortly before the May 1941 release of Citizen Kane, the FBI opened a file on Orson Welles. The file's contents, released decades later under the Freedom of Information Act, contained a list of Welles's associations that were, in the language of the file, quote, communist in character. The associations cited included Welles's involvement with the League of American Writers, his support for the Foster Parents Plan for War Children, a food relief organization for children displaced by World War II, and various social and political memberships from his theater years in New York. Director J. Edgar Hoover personally directed the investigation. According to memos preserved in the FBI archives and reviewed by Welles' biographer Harlan Lebo, the surveillance continued for approximately 10 years. The FBI's interest in Welles did not originate with the agency's own intelligence work. It originated, according to Lebo's research, in pressure from Hearst's allies in Washington. When the studio cabal approach failed, Hearst turned to a more personal weapon. Louella Parsons, the Hollywood correspondent for Hearst's newspapers and an arch-rival of Hedda Hopper, contacted Nelson Rockefeller. Rockefeller was one of RKO's largest shareholders. Parsons threatened that the American Weekly, a Hearst-owned publication, would run a defamatory exposé on Nelson Rockefeller's grandfather if the film was released.
Now in complete control of the government of this state, I made no campaign promises.
The grandfather in question was John D. Rockefeller, the Standard Oil baron who had died a few years earlier and whose legacy was contested but vulnerable. The threat was implicit but unmistakable. Kill the film or your family's reputation will be publicly attacked. Other exhibitors heard about the pressure on Rockefeller. They feared similar lawsuits or smears. They refused to screen the film. By March 1941, Citizen Kane was finished, but could not find a single theater chain willing to show it. By March 1941, Welles had run out of options. RKO had a finished film. No theater chain would screen it. The studio's cabal was still pressuring exhibitors. The Hearst smear campaign continued. Welles took the most extreme step available to him. He offered to personally buy the film from RKO for $1 million. He would take ownership of the negative, the prints, the marketing materials, everything. He proposed to find independent distribution and release it himself. RKO board members were divided. President George Schaefer continued to back Welles. Schaefer made the case to the board that releasing the film was a contractual obligation, that Welles had final cut authority, and that suppressing the film would expose RKO to lawsuits. The board relented. RKO booked a handful of independent theaters willing to defy Hearst. The film opened May 1, 1941, at the RKO Palace Theater on Broadway. The other major theater chains owned by the Cabal Studios refused to book it. From the moment Citizen Kane was released, every newspaper in the Hearst empire refused to accept advertising for the film. Hearst owned at least 25 major American newspapers in 1941. These papers reached, by some estimates, more than 30 million American readers, a quarter of the entire adult population of the country at that time. Citizen Kane could not be advertised in any of them. Hearst's reach extended beyond his own papers. He coordinated with other publications. The film was simply not allowed to exist in mainstream entertainment coverage. Reviews from non-Hearst papers appeared, but the systematic media blackout meant that millions of Americans who might have gone to see Citizen Kane in 1941 simply did not know it was playing in their city. The financial result was predictable. Citizen Kane lost money on its initial release. It was not until the film was rediscovered in France by critics in the 1950s that it was reappraised as a masterpiece.
I'd make my promises now if I weren't too busy arranging to keep them.
Faced with a media blackout and no theatrical access to mainstream audiences, RKO's marketing department made a strange decision. They marketed Citizen Kane as a love story. The official RKO advertising in 1941, which appeared only in the limited papers that would accept it, emphasized the romance between Charles Foster Kane and his second wife, Susan Alexander. The taglines focused on passion, jealousy, and broken hearts. The political dimension of the film, the press baron, the corruption, the rise and fall of an American empire was almost entirely absent from the marketing. The reasons are debated. Some accounts suggest RKO believed the love story angle would have wider audience appeal. Others suggest it was an attempt to obscure the Hearst parallel and avoid further legal action. Whatever the reason, the result was that a film about media manipulation was marketed using exactly the kind of misleading framing it was about. Despite the suppression campaign, Citizen Kane was nominated for 9 Academy Awards in 1942. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Sound, Best Music, Best Art Direction, Best Actor for Welles himself. By all critical accounts, the film should have won most of them. It won 1. Best Original Screenplay went to Welles and Mankiewicz. Every other major award went to other films. Best Picture went to How Green Was My Valley. According to multiple accounts, including reporting confirmed by the Hearst family in later decades, Hearst actively lobbied Academy members against the film. The pressure was not subtle. Studio executives who depended on Hearst's good graces for press coverage were told who to vote for. The man who could not destroy the film made sure it would not win the highest honor the industry could give. Welles's only Oscar for Citizen Kane was for the screenplay he had co-written. He would not win another Oscar in any category for the rest of his career. Orson Welles never personally met William Randolph Hearst before making Citizen Kane. He met him exactly once afterward. The encounter took place in an elevator at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco on the night of Citizen Kane's San Francisco premiere in 1941. Welles told the story decades later on The Dick Cavett Show. He stepped into the elevator. Hearst was already inside. The two men recognized each other immediately. Welles, calm and aware of the moment, introduced himself by name. He then said something that would have shocked anyone in the lobby below. He invited Hearst to attend the premiere of Citizen Kane that very evening. Hearst said nothing. He did not respond. The elevator reached its floor. Hearst stepped out without a word. As the doors closed, Welles called out one final line, quote, "Well, mister, Kane would have come." Welles told Cavett later that he believed his fictional character had more class than the real man he was based on. The most personal and dangerous moment of the suppression campaign came in a hotel lobby. Welles described the event years later on the same Cavett interview. After a public engagement, Welles was approached by a police officer outside his hotel. The officer warned him not to return to his room. The reason? Someone had arranged for a minor and underage girl to be staked out in the hallway near his suite, along with a photographer. The plan was to photograph Welles entering or exiting his room in proximity to the minor. The photographs would then be released. Welles's career would be over. The officer, who was off duty and had been tipped off by an unknown source, refused to participate in the setup. He warned Welles personally. Welles did not return to the hotel that night. He stayed elsewhere. The photographer and the minor eventually left. The setup was never reported in any newspaper. We know about it only because Welles told the story on television 3 decades later. Citizen Kane is now regarded as a perfect film. It tops every list. It defines cinematic technique. But in 1941, it was a film that should not have been released. The most powerful newspaper publisher in America tried to destroy it. The FBI investigated its director. 4 major studios pooled their money to burn its negative. Theater chains were threatened. A media empire blockaded its existence. Reviewers were pressured. The Academy was lobbied against it. Its star was threatened with a career-ending hotel sting. And it was marketed by its own studio as a love story. The version of Citizen Kane we celebrate today is the version that survived all of that. It is the version Welles fought for, that George Schaefer protected, and that Hearst, for all his power, could not erase. The man who tried to bury it is now a footnote. The film is now the standard against which every other film is measured. If you enjoyed this, the next video on this channel goes inside the production of Lawrence of Arabia, The Lost 20 Minutes, the blacklisted screenwriter denied credit, and the scenes that took 26 years to fully restore.